Thank you for joining us for another episode of Healthy Team, Healthy Business. Today we have Joe Rare joining us. Joe, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
To speak with us.
Absolutely.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and who you are?
I call myself an underground entrepreneur, meaning I'm not a huge, flashy social media type guy. I don't really care so much to have my personal stuff out into the world. So we build businesses in silence. We use virtual teams to do it. I've had my failures turn successes many, many times over. But, through and through, I think from the time I was very young, I was very much an entrepreneur. It was everything that I wanted to do with my life was build things. So we built multiple companies right now. Currently, we have 6 that we operate. They are 95 to 98% run by virtual assistants. And so it creates an enormous amount of freedom, both financially and with time, for me to do the things that are most important in my life, which is my family and my kids. And so, kind of my motto is you build things around the lifestyle that you actually want. You don't go try to carve your life out of the job or the business that you've created. And so I kind of do everything in the reverse effect, and I go, hey, I'm not touching that if it affects my lifestyle. I don't know if that gives you enough, but there we go.
How do you get to that point? And how did you decide that was the model you wanted from? Did you do that from the beginning?
No, that's a funny question. Now that you kind of phrase it, I did it that way in the beginning. And I built a business. I guess if I were to go way back, my first company that I launched, I actually dropped out of college to build this business. And it was a pseudo marketing promotional sales business. We literally went door to door and just sold stuff, right? And so we had consignment products. We went door to door, walked into businesses, sold the front desk, anything we had in our hands, and built a team of 40. And I ended up selling the company 2.5 years after. Didn't make much money off of it, but that led me into real estate. So that was me working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, only taking Sundays off because most businesses were shut down. And it was brutal. It was a lot of work in my early 20s. When I got out of that, I went, okay, now I'm going to go into like this passive income thing. I'm going to buy real estate and I'm going to become an investor in that. And I'm, in my early to mid 20s. That went really, really well while the market was hot. Then when the market crashed, I realized I'm an idiot and I was investing incorrectly, right? And I'm doing these fix and flips, and then you can't sell the flips because the market crashed. And so, then I'm upside down and I'm losing my ass in that. And then I went, okay, I'm not doing that. Now I'm going to go back to the drawing table. I had read 4-Hour Workweek and I was fascinated by the concept, even though I realized, Tim Ferriss left a lot out of the book. He brought the 4-hour idea after he had spent 15 hours a day building his thing, right? And so it was kind of like, okay, this is like a little broken thing. But I sat down, I basically packed up all my stuff. I moved down to San Diego to the beach and sat and built a business right out of the book, page for page, literally page for page. I still have it, notes everywhere. And I built an e-commerce business following that exact model to a T. Every single thing from the test on Google Ads to outsourcing to India, everything. And that was when I got my first taste of outsourcing, which was I hired VAs in India to fulfill and to manage customers and, help with the website and all of that stuff. So that was my first taste into it, and it took off, and I did really, really well with it for about 7 years. And I didn't really have to work much. I was like, okay, this is like a real thing. Like I went down to Costa Rica and hung out with friends and did that. And I was, in Nicaragua, and I actually got to do some fun stuff, and I didn't have to work. And it was kind of like, this is like almost cheating. Like this is crazy. And then of course, the one part of the book that I didn't follow the advice of was, don't start a business around ingestibles. And so that was the one thing. And so sure enough, I had a homeopathic product. The FDA decided that they didn't want people to sell it anymore. So that crashed and burned. And eventually I had to shut down the business. And that's what led me into marketing. And so I went from total freedom into marketing, and I'm doing consulting, and we're trading time for money. And all of a sudden I open an office with a bunch of US employees and fancy, conference room and glass walls and doors and that fun stuff, the Gary Vee style, right? I get stuck down that path, and 40% of our revenue was tied up in 2 clients. Both of them canceled in like a 10-day period. So now the company's basically bleeding. I'm covering the payroll and all the expenses out of debt. And so I'm racking up my own debt. And finally, a mentor of mine said, look, you need to shut the company down. And I'm like, well, no, like we can get out of this, right? That was only 2 clients. If we just get 2 more, we'll be good. And he goes, look, this is just going to be a roller coaster. You're going to do this again and again. And so I kept on. And at the time he was doing he had like a 2-person agency, and he was doing about $60,000 a month in revenue, but he had super good margins. And I'm like, but we're doing like 130, 140,000 a month. I'm like, you're way why am I going to listen to that? Well, fast forward about 6, 7, 8 months, I catch him on an interview and he's doing 400,000 a month. And I was like, what? And so I texted him, I said, what did you do? And he goes, you didn't listen to me, did you? So like within the next day or two, I don't know what it was, I fired everybody, shut down the office, told the landlord I'm not paying my rent anymore. Like, we'll deal with what comes. And I went and I started over. And I said, I went from working my face off with US employees and my outsource team to then go, but I was working like 12 hours a day. And I'm like, I'm coming home and I'm still working and I'm just on all the time. And I'm like, this is dumb. And so then I switched my model back and it was kind of like, started off working a lot, found freedom, worked a lot, then figured out and said, okay, I'm not going back to the things that failed and that didn't do well. And so that's when I really decided, okay, what do I want my life to be like? What do I want my children to see as far as me as a working dad to them? Like, what does that look like? I want to be able to be there for everything. I don't want to miss anything. And so that was when I really decided, okay, no matter what, I can build a business around the lifestyle I want. And that was when I made the decision. And then I relaunched and in 4 months, we went from 0 to 109,000 a month in revenue. 4 months later, we doubled it. And then I realized that model that I had created, I could do in any business. And so then that's when we said, okay, the virtual assistant company, let's grow that, right? And then that one took off and exploded. And that's been, kind of the catalyst.
That's a great, it's making my head now go in all different directions. But how do you then, because I was thinking maybe it doesn't apply to all businesses. Maybe it's the more, certain aspects or certain businesses the VA applies to, virtual assistant. I mean, so you're saying it applies to everything. What steps maybe would you do if you were starting at your same spot that you were in, and you're maybe in a different industry though, and you're trying to determine what can I hand off to a VA versus bringing in and avoiding that same situation that you did of having to fire everybody and then switch the model?
The first thing that I would say is go through your day. You get up in the morning, what's the first thing that you start doing, right? How much of that actually makes you money? Almost zero. And this goes for most people when they kind of kick off their day and get going, right? What do? They get up, they do the email purge. They grab their phone in the morning, first thing they do, before they do everything else, and they go through their email and they purge their email. What's important and what's not. I'm gonna delete all the stuff I don't need. I'm gonna come back to the other stuff later, right? Then they go do their morning routine, whatever that is, and they shower and do their stuff. Then when they come into the office, they sit down and they actually go, okay, now I'm gonna go through my email. There is zero value in that. Like there's almost no money sitting in your email inbox. It's all fires, right? And so most of the stuff that you're gonna do first thing in the morning is actually going to spiral you into probably a negative production day as far as revenue goes. And so I just decided, okay, hold on, like let me map my morning. What am I doing? How much of that could somebody else actually do? So things like email. I haven't checked my email first. I haven't been the first person to check my email in like 5 years. Like I have a VA do it first. They go through and now they've learned and we've, it's taken time, but we've got them to the point where they know what is important and what's not. So I only have to go check what is deemed important and that's it. And so I only look at those things. Everything else can be either dropped into a Slack message and say, hey, here's something here. Do I need to respond to it? Nope. Yep. Whatever that is. So that was like the first thing. So the first hire that I tell people to get is what we call a get shit done VA, right? They're your utility player. They're gonna do all the annoying things that just take your attention away from actually building your business. Checking your email does not build your business. It just doesn't, right? So we look at that first and we'd say all the stuff that is just busy work that we have to get off our plate, get somebody else to do it. That's the first hire. The second one is as you're rebuilding or you're building from the ground up, you need customers. There's marketing, advertising, prospecting. What are you going to do? And find somebody to do that for you. So if you are a marketer like myself, I wanted to be the person who was running these campaigns and doing these things. And I did that in my other agency and I was doing it all myself. And then I'm like, yeah, but I'm trapped because now I'm the guy. I'm the only guy. That's not gonna make me free, right? That means I have a job within my own company, which is not what I want. And so when I relaunched, I got one VA whose job, sole purpose was to prospect and bring me conversations that I can then flip into a sale. That was his only job. Email outreach, cold email outreach, customer list, any of my network on LinkedIn, social media, everything, cold outreach. That's what he did. I was in it and I saw the conversations happening. I step in and take over a conversation when it was necessary, and then I can move that into a sale. I knew for a fact that if I had the opportunity to sell, I could close a huge percentage just because I know what I'm selling and I knew like who the market was. So then from there, the problem is now I just sold somebody. So now am I gonna go fulfill the thing I just sold? And the answer is no, because now that doesn't let me be free. And so I said, okay, I need a team that can do fulfillment. So what we did is we sold a couple clients, I put a team in place and said, okay, I need you guys to do fulfillment. And I walked them through step by step. The first few clients that we brought on, step by step, we recorded every call. We turned those recordings into transcription, right? When this is before AI would transcribe it for you. And so somebody sat down and literally typed every word. And so then we transcribed it, created an SOP, screenshots of every single thing, and put that into the SOP. So we had video in the SOP, we had written copy in the SOP, we had visuals in the SOP. So when you look at how somebody learns, I'm taking this like way to the extreme, but when you look at how somebody consumes content and they learn, there's people who are auditory, they need to hear it. There's people who are visual, there's people who are kinesthetic, and there's people who are auditory digital. You have to be able to hit every single one of those types of people. Otherwise, you may miss a mark and you can't figure out why somebody isn't picking up what you're putting down. Well, because you're not communicating effectively for them. So we figured out that SOP model and it's been fantastic. And so now I said, okay, hold on a second here. We've got prospecting. I'm good there. My email's covered, all my busy work. I can close the deals and now I have fulfillment. And as soon as we were able to do that and it became just like this system, we grew really, really fast. And I said, okay, let's do it again. And we did it again the next month. And I said, hold on, could I take this exact same model, more people, new business, and do the exact same thing? In a 6-month window, Level 9 Virtual jumped to almost $1 million a month really, really fast. And so it was all with this model and I wasn't even a part of it. So I started with the sales, then I stepped out of sales and I just put a salesperson in there. And so then he became me and that was it. And then now I'm free.
How many times did you have to go through these VAs? I mean, you have the SOPs, which is great, but just like in America and everywhere else, I'm sure there's plenty of not so hot VAs.
Oh, tons.
How does that whole kind of process work?
So it takes getting better and better at finding why the VA may not perform well. And what we figured out is 95% of the time it's communication. So when we can accommodate the communication and how we communicate and communicating expectations, communicating boundaries, communicating everything that they need to be successful. What I did learn is that I can easily set somebody up for failure. Very, very easy. And I can put them in a spot where they're darn right gonna fail. But I can also do the opposite and I can put somebody in a position where they're gonna succeed. And so it was finding what is it that allows this person to succeed, but this person didn't. What was the difference? It's 95% of the time, it's a communication issue. Whether it be improper expectations, boundaries, maybe we didn't vet for their core skills competency well enough. Their personality profile doesn't match the expectation that we had. So we got better at just vetting a lot of those things. And as we improved that, then we had less turnover and it just got better and better. And then I realized that I'm also really, really terrible at managing people. I'm terrible at it. So I put somebody in place to manage the people because I don't do it well. I have no interest in like building, 900 VAs, building relationships with 900 people. I have no interest in it. Like I have my very core small crew of friends and I have a really hard time doing like big, huge networking and all that. Like it's just not in my personality to really love it. So I had to have somebody who can help me with that. And that was a big game changer, is understanding where my weaknesses are and putting a person in that role to do it for me so that the VAs all got what they needed, but it didn't depend on me failing over and over.
Are the VAs, is that a network that how to tap into, that people are out there, gig workers or whatever you want to call them, that are out there waiting for someone like you or David or I to contact them to ask them to do a particular task? Or is this something you kind of built up on your own as you discovered this method? This technique?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, you can go to the typical places to find VAs and there's tons available. What you run into though is you run into people who are kind of gig workers, like you kind of mentioned, right? They kind of hop around. They're freelancers. So they don't really want like a structured opportunity. And so what we've found is that for us, we look at the universities a lot. We look at people who are employed and seeing if there's an opportunity that maybe we can offer them something that they can't if we, have a network. But yeah, we do use communities that have networks of people looking very specifically. We actually try to go down a specificity like niche and say, okay, let's look in a community of VAs who happen to be graphic designers. And that small niche, that's where we'll go and we'll actually start to evaluate and see. And from there, if they're mentioning something else, we'll also look in those other places. But yeah, so we do have some communities that we tap into very heavily. We also advertise. And so we actually run ads to people who claim that they are a graphic designer, a web developer, whatever the skill might be, right? That's how we actually ended up finding our HR director, our bookkeeping, team members, all of those. We actually just ran ads, find out, oh, they're interested in having this role. Let's bring them in, and then we can kind of build them up and mold them. And so people with a ton of experience, we have found, don't necessarily correlate to the best performance, the best loyalty. Sometimes it's kind of in that middle where it's like they've got some experience, right? Maybe they haven't quite found who they are and how to properly tap into their personality profile. And then we can help guide them through that and build them up and then create really, really good VAs from that.
Did you then create, I'm thinking how you negotiate each time? I mean, do you have pay structure, or you have an idea now, or you've done it long enough to say, I got X thing I need done, so my VA fee that I'm willing to pay is this, and then you just negotiate that out? Because I'm just thinking, we're a very traditional business model where I've got employees under this roof, and pay scales based on job descriptions and all that kind of stuff. I'm just curious how that model works.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of an industry norm for VAs, kind of where kind of VAs start. We also look at it in the reverse, right? Because we sell VA services. So we have a price point that we sell. We have a margin we have to keep in order to operate our company, right? Every VA, it seems like, okay, well, I'm buying a VA service, and then, the VA's got their rate that we're going to pay them. And then there's a margin in the middle. Well, that margin in the middle has to handle payroll. We have a finance team, billing team. The finance team has AR. We have an HR team, right? So there's that. We have subject matter experts, which are trainers and coaches that actually support the VAs that we pay for. So we have things in place that cost money. And so as much as it might sound great, like, hey, go buy yourself, get yourself a $3 an hour VA. $3 an hour VAs are kind of over and done with, right? What you're going to get for $3 is going to be what you get for $3, right? It just doesn't work. So we have to figure out, how can we afford to offer all of the benefits both to the VA but also to the clients within our slim margin? And anybody who knows anything about staffing is a numbers game, right? So it's slimmer margins, more volume. And so we really have to focus on that. So our mission is that we can provide such benefit to the virtual assistants that they want to work for our company, because they could go do gigs and freelance and make more money than we pay them starting out. But if they grow in their career and our clients increase, the amount that they pay us, so we pay them, they can easily grow into a career. I mean, we have people that make US wages that are VAs in the Philippines. So people can grow into roles that are significant. The difference is that most people, the gig economy has been very, very bad, I think, for people hiring VAs, because people jump, right? And the loyalty, the structure, and hopefully the value that we create for them, we protect them from a client taking them on and then firing them. Oh, my business is shifting and I don't need the VA, cut them off. That person's family no longer gets any income. That's a giant problem. And when you start to understand some of those cultures over there, like for the Philippines as an example, there's a lot of times there's 3 generations living in one household, and we may be employing the only person who works, right? And so it's a significant understanding. So, my mission is we need to protect the VAs and give them opportunity. And so if they go out and freelance on their own and a client cuts them, they go to zero and now they're hunting for another client, right? And so that's when they get in one of those cycles, and we just protect them that. We go, hey, if the client leaves us, we can just give you a different client. Or we also have a service similar to Upwork, where we call it the pods. They're projects on demand, where they can just work within our project service. And so we can say, hey, while we're looking for a new client for you and we're trying to find the right fit, why don't you do projects for us? You have a skill set. We have clients paying for the service. Let's get you in there and you can continue to earn a living.
Can you tell us a little bit about that pod?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not exactly sure if everyone's familiar with Upward, and so just explain that a little bit.
Sure. The way it started was I had this idea for a long time, and then of course life's busy and I didn't really want to work and do it, and so we didn't implement it. And then COVID started to come around, and at first we just saw, because a huge portion of our clients happen to be agencies, and we saw them lose their clients, and then they couldn't afford our services, and all of a sudden we're like, whoa, that's a lot of credit cards declining, right? And this was in kind of the beginning of COVID, and we're like, oh, this is going to get bad. So we saw this huge decline. And so I actually stepped in. I'm like, I'm just going to call some of these guys. I know them. And I'm like, your credit card's declining? I thought you had a big old business. And so I start calling some of these guys, and I'm just like, so what's going on? And they're just like, clients just literally stopped. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. And I'm like, but you still need the service done because you're not trying to shut down your business, right? Like you still want to, what if we could do like, you buy a block of hours and just have us help you with stuff. You don't have a VA working in your business, but we just do projects for you. You know, you have a client, you need to, you know, set up a funnel, like we can actually step in and just do it for you, get it done. And so we created this projects on demand, like just buy a block of hours. You can use the hours over an entire month, 40 hours, 25 hours. You just pay once, you pay it up front. We do it reoccurring because most people just continue to reuse it. But when you use your 40 hours, if you do it in 2 weeks or you do it in 4 weeks, whatever it is, we just re-up and give you more hours. And so, but it allows you can assign 10 tasks in the same day and they'll just be given to the people who have that skill set because we have multiple groups of people who have video editors and graphic designers and web developers and so forth. And we can assign that 5 projects at the same time to multiple people. You get a dedicated project manager that oversees your account. They're your point of contact. They assign your tasks to their team and then they assure the quality and make sure that it's all done to, you know, to the liking. And then we do all communication, all project management, all through Asana. And it works really, really well. And so we did that and really launched it kind of 2020, the beginning of 2020. And it took off and it probably kept the business intact through COVID. And we grew, I think we 3x'd during COVID. And this service had a gigantic amount to do with it. And now it's still, I mean, one of the biggest services we have.
Do you ever get involved in your client's business itself, or are you just handling, you know, you're handing stuff that they say, they've already decided they're going to do this project or they got this initiative, their people have already figured out it's the right move for them. So we just do it.
You know, the consulting side's interesting to me. The coaching and consulting world, you know, if I were to go back to my belief system and how I want my life to be, consulting very much is trading time for money. And so it's completely against my business model and like what I want. So I do very little of it anymore. If I find something that I'm super interested in and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to like touch this thing that guy's working on, you know, I'll come in and I'll start just having conversations with him, whether it's via text and so forth. Have you tried this? Have you looked at this? And then build a relationship and say, hey, you know, do you want to do any consulting? I'll do it on equity. I'll do it on, you know, but it's got to be something that I'm like super, super interested in. So I do very, very little of it. And we're kind of the doers, right? We just execute the projects.
Made me think when you were talking about the Philippines in particular, is there any legality issues in having these people working from these countries outside of America? Either they aren't understanding the laws and they accidentally make a mistake in regards to that, or trade secrets, or I guess, you know, just any number of things, that aspect. I mean, how is that taken care of?
That's a little bit of a challenging situation. Number one, I tell people, like, if you've got trade secrets, they're probably not that secret anyway. You can protect yourself as much as you want, but even in the US, for example, my agency is in the wedding industry. We serve wedding venues. Like, we had people rip off literally word for word everything from our websites, VSLs, verbatim, and they've just stolen. The process to go through to go deal with that is so expensive and time consuming. You know, it's kind of like, okay, so we'll send a demand to cease and desist and we'll kind of start there and see how it goes. Trade secrets aren't really trade secrets. Everybody knows everything. Everybody's going to figure it out. Somebody did it before you and you just copied their stuff. Like, very little. Now, if you're getting into like some serious IP, US laws will carry a fair distance. The challenge is that you're not employing the VA. And since you're not employing the VA, they're independent, and what they do is what they do. Now, what we have in place is we have independent contractor agreements that do have, clauses against them taking, trade secrets, data, any of that stuff, realizing that they are not allowed to share it. They're not allowed to download it. They're not allowed to do any of that stuff. Over the past 8 years, we haven't really had issues with that. I can't think of one that's been anything worth even having a conversation about. All I tell people is, like, if you're concerned and your business type is the one to be concerned with, don't hire a VA. Like, hire somebody local. However, your local person, unless you're monitoring and you're locked down your server, they can do exactly what you're afraid the VA could do. They'll do the same thing in the US. The difference is they're probably better at it, right? Because we have more access and all that. But if you're afraid of it, you're just going to be afraid of it. You're going to have a tough time. There's very little that a VA can actually take and go do something with. And so that's the other thing, right? If somebody were to take IP or they were to take a customer list, they still have to be able to go do something with it. And most people in general around the world, doesn't matter where, they wouldn't know what to do with the information anyway. You know, and it would have to be something unbelievably malicious, in my opinion, that was premeditated, it was planned out. That would have to be, I don't know. I've never seen it, and we've placed over 4,000 VAs. So, and I've never seen it. I've never had an issue with it. We have tons of clients that are attorneys. And even with that data, with that information, they've never even brought it up in a conversation and been concerned with it. So I don't know. It's tough because it's just like, I've just never seen it. And I don't really understand what could, aside from medical and aside from legal, I don't really see what could be unbelievably dangerous to not let a VA in.
How did you find your way into the wedding industry? What you got a couple things going on, looks like that are involved in that industry.
When I closed down the agency, one of the challenges was, so where am I going to go after I close down my agency? And the piece of advice that I got was, if you were to look at your client roster and every one of your clients were to call you on a Sunday when you're hanging out with your kids, who would you answer the phone for? And the only client that I had at the time, who happened to be one of my closest friends, had a wedding venue. We were running an amazing program for him. It was working like crazy. And I knew that if he called me, he wouldn't be calling me for a fire. So I'm like, well, I can only think of one person I'd pick up the phone for. And he's like, that's probably who you should be doing business with. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting concept. So I thought that through quite a bit. And then I said, all right, with ease, we crush it for that industry, for that niche. Let's just go all in on that. And so the marketing sales system that we built, I said, okay, we're going to call this one thing. It's one program that we implement in their business. It's one thing, one niche. We're going all in on it. And that's going to be what we do. So that's how we decided on the wedding industry. Then later down the road, I ended up becoming partners in that venue. Then we invested into 14 other venues, and currently we have 5. And so that's how I got into the wedding industry. So, but from my buddy's perspective, I was involved in his business through our conversations over a 10-year period. We talked about everything. I knew every bad story, good story, money losing situation, positive things. I knew all of it. So for me to step into that, it was really easy because I'm like, I already know all the stuff. But what's really funny about that, just a quick side story, is that it took me 4 years to convince one of my best friends to let me run a marketing campaign for him. He wouldn't do it. Oh, no. Everything we got is coming from referrals. We don't need to do that. We don't need to spend money on ads. We don't need to do it. And I'm just like, dude, come on. And so finally, after almost 4 years, I was feeding him enough beers, and he kind of was like, yeah, we're just kind of stuck. We're not doing enough weddings and this. And I'm like, dude, let me try this, And so we doubled their business in 14 months. And then I went back and I was like, hey, dude, I just made you a couple $1,000,000. You should probably pay me more. And so that's when they let me partner with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about in regards to people? I know a lot of times too, kind of going back to the aspect of the Philippines about people being treated humanely and not having to worry about anything, of that aspect, and the whole American kind of mindset of making sure that is addressed. There's no Nike factories, people have to stare at their Apple, they can't lift their head up, you're paying them the $2, I'm going to buy a service from you, but yet you're going to just have these little kids in whatever country now making the phone calls for me.
Sure.
Whatever.
Well, we just don't have any concern with that. What we're very much, number one is we could see kind of, we record screenshots of all of our clients so that we, through our time tracking software. So we kind of know what people are up to, right? But we're also, we pay fair for over there. We pay, over, actually more than fair compared to what their kind of, their average is as far as income goes. We pay above average. And we have room for development. Most of the time we get multiple people from the same family who end up working with us. And so it'll start off and we get one person, and then all of a sudden it's like that gal's husband applies for a job. And then, that guy's brother. And then we have one of my head project managers, his daughter, is I think she's 20 something. Now she's started with us. But we pay above average, in the country. We support them as far as technology any way that we can. They all work from their own home. So they're not going to some dungeon where they have to go sit down and do that. So, the environment that we create for them is we allow them to work in the comfort of their own home, be around and support their families. And they work Monday through Friday, well, the US hours, or their client hours, I should say, Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day, that's it. And so while it happens to be most of the time that they're working the graveyard shift, so do cops, so do fire, like people work graveyard, like it's just a thing. So they don't have to work with us. Like they don't have to have a job with us. They can freelance, they can do whatever they want. What they're coming for, and that's, I could have said this during, when we were talking about recruiting and finding VAs is like, we just have an influx of people applying every day because over the years we built a brand over there that people know that they can come and they can have a safe work environment. They're going to be treated well. We do digital parties at the end of the year where we have huge, New Year's parties, and there's all these events and all these things, and everybody makes money at this thing. They win prizes, and everybody gets bonuses, and clients give bonuses, and all that. Our VAs are treated so well that I think that's one of the reasons why we have such a attraction of applicants. Yeah, I mean we don't have any warehouse where people work, so I'm not too worried about that.
I think you said this model should work, I guess, across all industries, but David and I both happen to be in kind of hands-on small manufacturing type of businesses where there's you come to a place, there's machines, there's inputs and outputs, trucks, all that kind of stuff. So it's very much like the stuff happens here.
Yeah.
What would you say to an executive in a business like that? How would they apply your model or even use your services to? I guess the biggest thing would be, can an executive buy back your time? That's kind of what the goal would be.
Yep.
And then how would you see that sort of working?
I'd start at the beginning, like I said before. So look at your own life. As an executive, how much stuff can you get off your plate that lets you go do the things that you need to do to grow your business? As the executive, your job is to make your business more profitable, make it grow, right? Provide more for your staff, provide more for your, vendors and customers and so forth. But how do you do that if you're bogged down with like admin stuff, just stuff? So buy back your own time. That'd be the first thing. But also you could just look around your company and say, okay, you say a lot of stuff is hands-on, it's done right here. Well, great. But what happens there that doesn't have to be there? Admin, payroll, do you have in-house bookkeeping? I don't know what your business structure is like, right? But in-house bookkeeping, marketing, like, all of those things, all aspects of those things and every kind of nook and cranny in between can all be outsourced. So when you look at, companies, I mean, we're not going to do something for, a car manufacturer that has people on the line doing work, but they have all kinds of supporting roles all throughout the company that they outsource. I mean, the GM and Toyotas and everything, they all outsource a ton of their business overseas to other people. They all do. So I think if you were to actually look at your business and say, well, how much of this stuff is not hands-on, and it's somebody in front of a keyboard, as an example, anything that's done just on a keyboard that doesn't require somebody to physically be there can be done virtually. And again, yes, you can use it in every industry. How you use it is just going to be a little different. It might be more limited than it could be if it was in a different business.
Well, Joe, I think that's all the questions that Josh and I have today. I know This has been fun and something I need to try to figure out how I can use more. I know I'm trying to right now call a bunch of municipalities about some different projects I want to try to do, and that's all my brain just keeps going back to is how do I figure out because I'm tired of calling municipalities and asking them what I need to do for zoning and planning, and so I just keep thinking back to that. I know there's probably, because I have just been, it doesn't apply. I'm going to spend more time probably trying to create this whole process than doing it, but I want my time back. So yeah. I think I need to go back to the drawing board, like you're saying, then there and just create the questions and then start trying to find the people.
Yeah, it's really tough for some businesses. Like we deal with a lot of home service companies, and one of the challenges they run into is that they're busy, right? They're working hard, they're busy, they've got lots of projects going on, and they jump job to job, right? You get these contractors, as an example, who build homes or, build custom homes. And it's like they're on the next job and then they're going and they're on the next one and they're just going. And it's like, but hold on, like you didn't build any sort of like infrastructure. So when your phone rings, if you can't pick up your cell phone in that moment, you miss the call. You miss the opportunity, right? Plumbers run into this. They're under a sink and the phone rings and they can't answer it and they miss it, that they're going to the next plumber, right? But so how does that person grow their business? Well, the stuff that they don't need to be doing needs to be outsourced. One of our services is what we call live lead nurture. anything inbound coming in, inbound phone calls, inbound, emails, inbound SMS, or, Google My Business messages, Facebook messages, whatever those are, they can come inbound to our team. We answer them in real time. And the only requirement of the company to set this up is they need to sit down, take a minute, go through kind of the talk track that they would typically have, and help create some sort of a communication track, FAQs and so forth, that we could answer on their behalf. And then if that doesn't work and we come into a question we don't have, we literally just text them real quick, hey, we just got this question. What do we say? They send it back. We add it to our talk track list, our FAQs. Now we have the answer for the next time. And we do this with hundreds and hundreds of clients around the world, and we answer in real time for people. And AI is stepping in, and there's some of it going on with AI. It's still, in my opinion, it's still not quite there yet to be able to do it in a way that's still human to human and you can build an emotional rapport with. But, we do this in real time every day for many, many industries, car dealerships and, and medical and chiropractor offices and wedding venues and marketing agencies and plumbers and so forth. But, that is one thing. But it would require you to sit down, write some stuff down. And most business owners have a tough time going, hold on, okay, let me step back. Let me stop for a second. Let me actually go build my architecture, my infrastructure, whatever it is that they need to kind of create so that it could then be done by somebody else. And that right there, I think, is probably the biggest challenge with delegating is I don't have time to delegate. I don't have time to do the thing that'll give me the time, right? It's just this, and it's really tough because it's like tomorrow I got to be here and I got this other project and I got that and I'm under a sink and I understand. But guess what? Like eat a Saturday and a Sunday. Don't do anything and just knock this out and it'll change the rest of your life. It'll give you so much time. So there's a quick piece of advice.
Thank you for joining us today.
You got it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.